This story is based on alleged accounts without concrete evidence and may be viewed as science fiction. It is presented for entertainment and discussion purposes only, and we do not endorse or support any claims made. Viewers should conduct their own research and form their own opinions. Today we are going to talk about Area 51. When we mention Area 51, we think of UFOs and aliens. It all started in 1989 when a former employee who claimed to be 51 years old made a disclosure that caused a sensation at the time and pushed Area 51 into the limelight. That person was Bob Lazar. He became a legendary figure in the UFO field. Despite facing various doubts for over 30 years, he insisted that he had seen and worked on extraterrestrial technology. In 2018, in his documentary called Area 51 and Flying Saucers, he provided new evidence to support his claims. Can his claims be verified? What were his motives? Is it possible that UFOs exist in Area 51? Today, we will have a comprehensive discussion about this legendary figure. This issue will provide a new conclusion to reveal the truth behind the story. On a day in May 1989, the 8th Channel of Las Vegas received a phone call from a former employee of Area 51 in Nevada, claiming that he had some personal reasons to disclose some inside information about the base. Faced with this big news, the TV station's reporters rushed to the agreed location, but the man requested that his information not be revealed and used shadow to cover his appearance.
That are out there of extraterrestrial origin, and they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
You say there's 9 saucers. How are those tests going?
Oh, well, some of them are 100% intact and operate perfectly. The other ones are being taken apart. I was involved mainly in propulsion and the power source.
Where did we get these saucers? How did they come into the hands of the government?
I haven't the slightest idea, and you have to understand the information is very compartmentalized, and I was only allowed information that pertained particularly to what I was involved in.
Well, you said you were referred to getting into trouble. Have you had some repercussions?
Yeah, I've been threatened with being charged with espionage. I've had my life threatened by them, my wife's life threatened by them.
It can be seen here that the man was very knowledgeable about information confidentiality and security clearance. He only spoke about what he knew, unlike many whistleblowers who tend to go on and on with imaginative stories. After the disclosure, the U.S. media began to follow up on the story, making it a sensational event in 1989. Following numerous media invitations, the man decided to accept an interview with the 8th Channel of Las Vegas and revealed his real name as Bob Lazar. Although he knew that going public would cause a lot of trouble, it was also a way to protect himself. He claimed to be a former engineer who worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory and was later transferred to a base called S4 in Area 51, where he conducted reverse engineering work on alien technology. First, Lazar said that Area 51 and S4 were 2 completely different organizations, although they were close to each other. He explained that Area 51 had nothing to do with alien technology, and that the staff there did not have clearance to know anything about S4. This indicates that S4 was a separate secret organization with a higher security level than Area 51. He also mentioned that his salary came from the Department of Naval Intelligence, and he guessed that the Navy might have had contact with UFO research because in our perception, the Air Force seems more interested in studying UFOs. Another possibility is that some of the 9 UFOs were recovered or salvaged from the sea. Lazar said that all personnel entering S4 had to gather at an EG&G office near McCarran International Airport, now Harry Reid International Airport, in Las Vegas. EG&G was a service provider for the U.S. Department of Defense. They would then take an unmarked plane operated by a secret airline called Janet Airlines, which was operated by the U.S. Air Force and used to transport military contractors' employees to special military facilities in Nevada and California. It was essentially an employee shuttle for the military. These employees would arrive at the military airport in Area 51 and then take a blacked-out bus to S4. The purpose of the blacked-out bus was to prevent the employees on board from knowing where they were going. When Lazar first arrived at the S4 base, he entered a place called the briefing room, where there were more than 20 files. His first day was spent reading them to understand what the S4 base was doing. From these files, he learned that there were 9 UFOs at the S4 base, one of which came from a binary star system called Zeta Reticuli. He also saw a photo of a dead creature with an unknown head and chest, with a T-shaped incision on the chest and the organs removed. Although this was not related to his research, it was the most typical image of an alien in our imagination. However, he said he never saw aliens during his entire work period, only this photo. On his second visit to the S4 base, he was surprised to find that the big door at the entrance of the base was open. These doors were made to look like the texture of the mountain, and when closed, they blended in with the mountain. Inside the door was a silver disc-shaped aircraft, but at the time, he thought it might be some kind of advanced aircraft being developed by the United States. It wasn't until he actually walked inside the aircraft for the first time that he confirmed it was not something from Earth. According to Lazar's description, he did not feel excited but rather uncomfortable when he first entered the aircraft, because when you realize that you are inside something completely unfamiliar and not belonging to Earth, your brain has a protective mechanism, and everything becomes eerie. Lazar's job was to conduct reverse engineering development on this aircraft. The purpose was to apply the technology of this aircraft to military weapons. They called this aircraft the sport model because of its streamlined appearance and liquid metal texture. The diameter of the entire aircraft was about 15 meters, and it was 5 meters high. There were no visible seams or rivets on the outside, as if the whole metal had been molded. However, when you pushed your hand to a certain part of the aircraft, a very delicate honeycomb-shaped door would automatically open. The aircraft was divided into 3 layers. The upper layer was the cabin, which was similar to a navigation device. The middle layer was the control layer, and the bottom layer was the power layer. The height of the control layer was about 1.2 meters, which was obviously not designed for human body type. There were 3 small seats in the middle, like children's seats, and each seat had a large box behind it, which was said to be the power device of the aircraft. It was part of a gravitational amplifier and connected the three most core components. The gravitational emitter, the bottom of the aircraft, was designed as a concentric circle. Lazar talked about the most core part of the aircraft, which was the three gravitational emitters. By irradiating the gradient surfaces of these concentric circles differently, the aircraft could fly in various postures and at different speeds in different media. The basic principle is that the emitter emits gravitational waves, producing a positive gravity that pulls the UFO to its destination, instead of traditional aircraft and rockets, which rely on the force of chemical fuel to counteract friction and resistance to move forward. This principle is opposite to our propulsion technology. Therefore, after setting the destination, the UFO can almost instantly reach it by emitting the corresponding gravitational waves. The bottom of the UFO moves forward during flight, and the metal rod running through the top and bottom of the UFO wraps it up, forming a gravity field. So the members inside are not affected by the gravity of the Earth. This is why some witnesses have seen UFOs making unimaginable movements, such as high-speed 90-degree turns in the air. But the members inside are in a distorted gravity field and feel nothing. The concentric circle design is the diffraction of gravitational waves in different directions. Similar to the design of a speaker diaphragm, both are in circles. When the sound source occurs in the center, the concentric circle diaphragm transmits the sound waves out. And it can be seen that the waves propagate in this form when encountering obstacles in water and sand. Therefore, when one of the emitters acts on the green gradient surface, the UFO can achieve vertical takeoff and landing and fly in different directions by adjusting the effects of the other two emitters on the outermost red surface. When the UFO is flying in outer space, all three emitters are aligned with the blue surface in the center, which is equivalent to the sound source position of a speaker, and the maximum power is used to achieve long-distance flight. There is gravity between any two objects in space, and enlarging the gravity field can bring them closer together. This sounds like a very simple principle, but the difficulty lies in how to emit gravitational waves and how to create a gravity field. This is where Lazar's other core disclosure comes in, which is the use of the element 115 in the UFO's antimatter reactor, a material that does not exist on Earth. At the bottom of the UFO's reactor is a small particle accelerator, where a proton is accelerated to high speed and aimed at the element 115. This creates an extremely unstable element 116 in the air, which immediately decays and releases antimatter in the process. The antimatter combines with a gas in the reactor, and when matter and antimatter combine, they annihilate each other and convert into huge amounts of energy, creating gravitational waves. This is the energy source of the gravity amplifier. The biggest challenge is how to obtain the element 115, which is not a natural element on Earth and must be artificially synthesized. Lazar said that the power device of this UFO is actually designed for flight in a vacuum, such as interstellar travel, rather than in the environment of Earth. where the gravity field is not completely constant due to the density and structure of the Earth. Therefore, when the UFO uses low-speed flight mode, it flies in a ghostly and unstable manner, and Lazar constantly adjusts the gravity field. This may be why such an advanced UFO crashed on Earth, simply because it could not adapt to the Earth's environment. The team that operated the UFO initially studied its operation, and the test pilots squeezed into the small cockpit of the UFO outside the Papoose Dry Lake at the S4 base, lifting the UFO to a height of 10 meters above the ground. At this time, a circle of purple light appeared at the bottom of the UFO, and the gravity field distorted the light. When you walk to the bottom of the UFO at this time, you actually see the bottom of the UFO, which is very amazing. Just like how we can see the energy of a planet blocked by the sun. And the greater the energy, the stronger the space distortion. The military's goal was to understand the weapons system on this UFO, and whether it could be applied to U.S. military weapons. Therefore, Lazar's team not only had to understand the flight principles and power devices of the UFO, but also discovered that these 3 gravity amplifiers could be used as weapons. The emitter can emit gravitational waves like a lens, focusing them on a point to destroy the target. However, they believe that the purpose of this UFO is not to serve as a weapon. And when the UFO is flying, due to the distortion of space, the position you see it in and its real position are different. It is futile to try to shoot down a UFO with fighter jets or missiles, because you cannot shoot them down unless they crash on their own. Lazar also added that the reason why the UFO appears as a halo at night is actually a byproduct of the antimatter engine, and the glow is not their intention. The bottom of the UFO has a high-voltage discharge effect, which produces photons in the air. The UFO glows like the exhaust of our cars, which is a normal phenomenon. And sometimes the UFO appears as a ball of light. Not because they are necessarily spherical, but because of this glowing phenomenon. At the end of the interview, the journalist asked Lazar why he chose to disclose this information. He said it all started with a foolish act on his part. Because he was employed by EG&G, he had Wednesdays off. And on Wednesday nights, the UFO would be test-flown over the Papoose Salt Lake, with long-distance flights. So one Wednesday night, he took his wife and a friend to a mountaintop near S4 to secretly watch the UFO's test flight. Then that night, they really saw the UFO that Lazar had talked about.
Okay. Good luck.
No, what? Did you see that move it did?
No, I didn't.
It went like it went boom, boom. Wow, look how bright it's getting.
Look at it now.
It's getting bright.
Not bright enough for me to get the son of a bitch.
Here, hold on, right here. Are you there?
No.
When they went to see the UFO again on the second Wednesday, they were discovered by security personnel patrolling the S4 base. Afterwards, they were handed over to the Nellis Air Force Base for questioning, as the entire Area 51 security was under the responsibility of the Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. Later, Lazar was fired by EG&G, and one day, a week later, while driving on the road, a stranger's car overtook him and a shot was fired at him by a hunter, but missed. After that, Lazar felt his life was threatened. which prompted him to have the idea of disclosing the information to the media. This is the full story of Bob Lazar. Looking back, how credible is Lazar's disclosure? Did Bob Lazar really work at S4 Base, or was he lying? Stay tuned to find out.